He was with me one day with the wolves, and we were hanging out in the kennel, and Kona was correcting Loki. He had his whole head in his mouth, and he was snarling like a wild beast, and Loki was screaming in the background, and I'm sitting there drinking tea or something with Philip, and Philip's looking at me like, wolf killing wolf over there? I'm like, nah, that's what they do. They don't hurt each other. He's just telling him who's boss. And he was like, wow, that's, what did you call it? Healthy conflict. And then a little bit later on down the road, he called me one day, he goes, I got this idea. It's called the wisdom of the pack. And we do a lot of work with Philip. Philip works with veterans, with corporations, teaching them how to work together better as a team. And he's going to share that with you today. But his foundation is based in a wolf pack, and then we come in at the end with the wolves, and we talk about wolves as a team. And we've made a lovely friendship over these years, and I think we're a great team, and we become family, we become part of the same tribe, part of the same pack. So it's my honor to introduce Philip Folsom.
Hey guys, I'd like to invite you to come in a little closer, if you'd like. And the reason for this is a kind of a demonstration, but it's also just practicality. I'm not going to use a mic. Generally, I'm shouting at large groups of people on either ropes courses or in horse corrals or some other place. So you guys can hear me in the back?
Yeah.
Please be quiet. That's what you want me to say. Like, it's also the reason why I wanted you guys to be closer is that we live in a world that is very toxic. And we generally, when you're embedded with a bunch of strangers, it triggers in our amygdala, which is that big center of your brain that runs fight-flight, it triggers a lot of fear response. So anytime we are with a strange human that's kind of invading our personal space, we get a lot of anxiety. It makes us really uncomfortable. And that's why we've come with all sorts of strange, dysfunctional behavior. Like when we all get in the elevator, we all face one direction.
Yeah.
And then we don't touch, or if you do, just barely touch. Oh, I'm sorry, I touched you. And then you say, speak again until the door opens. Then you get out and you go, oh, thank God, I'm out. Same with bank lines. We behave in that manner all the time when we're in social situations, and it really is part of the dis-ease of our culture. And so a lot of the work that I do as a cultural anthropologist is I go into organizations and I look at the value systems and the belief systems of that organization and find out how to make it better. And the story that Steve was telling was actually a really crystallizing moment for my career as it related to anthropology. So I want to share that with you. Wolves are going to run all the way through this entire workshop and story, and we will too, because there's a lot of connections that are not even fully understood at this point, but they're profound. And I know that the moment human beings see a wolf, it changes something. I've never actually seen Justin Bieber in real life, but I imagine that's what happens to humans when you see him. When Apex pulls up and you see a wolf head stick out of the truck, I've seen people crash cars, I've seen people drop their coffee, and I've seen people walk across a busy road like zombies just to go look at the wolves. It doesn't happen to any other animal. I think we would all be very interested in snakes and tigers and other interesting things, but wolves hit us at a level that is really different. And there's a lot of biologists and paleoanthropologists who believe that there has been something that happened in the last 100,000 years with our partnership. And it is not fully understood, except they do know that when a dog, which was a wolf 100,000 years ago, gets petted by a human, they have a hypothalamus response that boosts serotonin and dopamine and basically makes you feel good. The dog has a reciprocal response. So if you track the blood levels of humans and their canine pets, they both get this increase of well-being when they are connected to each other. So we don't know exactly how that happened. We don't know really what that early partnership was, but there certainly is a lot of dynamics with wolves and humans, and I'm going to touch on that from a paleoanthropological perspective too. And then any of this information, I would love it if you guys would ask questions, because I'm not giving my standard corporate workshop here. This is, I believe I'm speaking to a room of rabid wolf fanatics. So if you guys want to know, anything about whatever the background is on that, and ads would be awesome, and ads would be great. So I'd love this to be a conversation. It would be brilliant. Okay. So the story, a little bit about myself first, and then we'll go back to the Steve story. I came from a really high trauma background. The kind of classic story of growing up real poor with some neglect and abuse and whatnot. When I joined the military, to basically as a means out. And most of us, men and women who join the military, are not actually doing it in a really patriotic way. It's because that's how poor kids get to college. So the numbers right now are about 2 to 3 times of pre-trauma load than the average civilian. So you take, if you poll an average civilian, yeah, we've all had some poverty and some challenges and bullying. But then you poll the average veteran, he's like, oh, look at all that stuff back in the closet. And so the passion about trying to look in and see what's going on with our culture that is creating this lack of this ease or dis-ease is really profound for me. And I do believe that the work that we're doing will create a trophic cascade. Is that the right word? Sure. Trophic? Yes, trophic can work. I was going to say trophic. So we're losing species every day. Every day. We're losing species to extinction. And nobody really cares because they're not sexy. They're more like beetles and grubs and other stuff that isn't really cool. We care about wolves. We care about polar bears. And so if we can address that, then by the very active engagement at that level, there's this huge trickle-down effect on all the rest of our environment. The same thing is true with us culture. Our society is absolutely toxic. We have, if you compare and contrast the Paleolithic existing tribes that we have, and you guys are welcome to come on if you want. I just figured since we're a small group, I was going to talk here. So you guys are welcome if you'd like. There's lots of room. You might have to sit next to people. This
Scary people.
The Amazon basin, which has the majority of our existing Paleolithic tribes, but you could make some case for the Bushmen, for Aboriginals, for Chaco Canyon. There are still some existing primitive people, and primitive is not a really good word, but it's the nomenclature of what we normally use. They have almost no diabetes. They have almost no back pain. They have almost no knee pain. They have very little cancer, almost no heart disease. They have no mental illness, as we would normally call it. So no, they don't have any clinical anxiety or depression or other, standard behaviors that we would look at as aberrative. And so if you take a look at and compare and contrast to our culture, we have a slew of things that is slowly killing us. And so we're probably the more primitive. We have regressed. We have stepped into something that Krishnamurti calls a sick society. And the full quote is, "It is no measure of health to be well adapted to a sick society." And so we have become that. And by looking at what our culture is, you can really start, hacking that, going, what are the things that are wrong with this? Why is it that those people who are, living in a Paleolithic society or culture, why are they healthy? Why are they happy? Why are they high performing? And that's what I spend a lot of time doing. And that's the genesis of what I'm going to share to you. I'm sneaking that into corporate America by calling it high performance culture development. I'm really just kind of trotting in with my, with some of my mythopoetic stuff. What I've discovered is that there is a perfect or almost perfect Venn diagram or overlay of high performance sports psychology, and I work regularly with Red Bull and their whole big Red Bull high performance school out of Los Angeles. In fact, I'm bringing the Wolves, the Apex Wolves, in to their big conference in June, and that's going to be in the Santa Monica Mountains. So they're all really excited about it. So sports psychology, It's a pyramid of very specific and sequenced building blocks on how to build a team that can operate at full potential. Now, in the team building world, or leadership development world, there's also a bunch of thinkers who have created a very, very similar thing. When you take Patrick Lencioni or any of the other corporate consultants and you look at their team psychology and sports psychology, it's exactly the same. What I discovered from Steve and Paula and the Wolves is that the Wolves operate in exactly the same fashion. So I get a little chills when I say that because you can't deny the similarities between wolf behavior and human behavior. I think you called it a family. And really that's what a tribe is. In anthropological terms, what a tribe is a group of people that are primarily linked by kinship or marriage that share common beliefs and values. Okay? So we no longer really have that defined as, in our society, as our families as our primary tribe. We spend most of our time with the people where? At work. Works are our new tribes. And most of the time we marginalize our work or our career as, this is the thing I have to do so I can live and do this other stuff that's really important. So we have surrendered the field of our most important block of time, and that's what we do at work. We've also surrendered the most important people in our lives. They're the ones we spend the most time with. So if we haven't really formed relationships and family connections and a deep tribal awareness of what's going on at school, right, on our sports teams, and in our jobs, we're already done. And the contemporary number right now is only about 20% of Americans are fully engaged with their jobs, which means 80% are living for the weekend and they're just doing what they have to do for 8 hours a day going, come on, come on, come on. And so when we take a poll and look at why are we so sick? Well, because we're living in toxic systems which have no meaning and no purpose. And we're trying to find that in the periphery, and a lot of things we find out there on the edges is alcoholism and drugs and porn and whatever other stuff they're like, oh, I need that. Okay. So the Wolves, this is the Steve story. I had brought a bunch of vets out to see the Wolves. In my mind, there was some connection between perceived killers of the mountains and the perceived killers of our military and the misconceptions there. And so I thought, well, there'll be some healing that goes on because I know that it's loud for me, so maybe there'll be something there. And then, like Steve said, there was this, which for me seemed like a really horrific, terrible battle going on. And those of you with dogs, how many people have dogs? And if you see a dog fight, what do? You break it up. You break that up as quickly as possible because you know that the longer they go at it, then the more blood's going to start flying. I mean, it is guaranteed. The same thing on the playground. When you see two humans going at it, it's usually not a posturing display. Usually when it comes to actual blows between either gender, there's an intention to do as much damage as possible to that other person. And when I saw Steve just utterly blasé drinking his tea, I said, what is going on? He goes, oh no, that's just what they do. And he goes, yeah, they never bite each other. I went, those animals never bite each other? Like the equipment on those animals? Yeah. And he goes, no, they can't. They're pack hunters. And they kill animals, 10 times their size with their face. They can't bite each other. Because if they do bite each other, and then they are compromised with their hunting ability, they go extinct. They die. So the reality is that, we have been force-fed, and this is kind of to us men, this lie of the lone wolf, the Lone Ranger, Rambo, being fiercely independent. This is language that's been driven into us by our parents, our coaches, their parents, probably since agriculture. And certainly, if you want to push back that far, since the Industrial Revolution. We have been taught to be self-reliant, independent, lone wolf men. I see guys wearing lone wolf t-shirts around, proudly. I'm a lone wolf. And what I want to tell them is, what happens to the lone wolves? they die.
It's hard and usually short-lived.
Yeah, they die. And
Unless they're lucky.
And so with us, being a lone wolf doesn't mean that we're starving to death, like the packs that get this, when you were sharing the story about how the packs disintegrate and then they head off into the wilderness. What our deaths look like is slow deaths of alcoholism and drug abuse and isolation and a lack of professional abundance and networking. I mean, we go down the tubes, but it takes us about 10 years until we die. Okay? Since 9/11, we have only lost between 7,000 and 8,000 of our troops to combat. I don't know where the exact number is right now. Guess how many we've lost to suicide?
12.
Or
80,000 times that number?
200,000.
150,000. And these are, and I work with corporate America who complains to me regularly, well, I can't find workers who are team-oriented and mission-focused. Where are these people? I'm like, they're killing themselves 22 a day. That's where they are. So the lone wolf dies, and in many ways, for us to fix this problem of our society, I'm going after the polar bears. I'm going after the wolves. And we got some of them sitting in the room right here. So if we can find a way to fix the wolves in our community, then that same push down will help the lone wolves in our inner cities. Because we're losing just as many of those kids who have the same levels of PTS, same levels of suicide and drug addiction as our veterans. Except veterans are a little bit more postery, because we served and we're patriots and we look good under a flag. And so honestly, we're important, but we are just that apex thing on the top of this huge problem. And so it's really vital that we start looking at that lone wolf analogy. Back to the wolf story, sorry. So when Steve said, yeah, they're pack hunters, they can't fight each other. And and at this point, they had finished their little altercation and they were run off playing together. And they were skipping and running and bumping into each other and they were completely discharged of all trauma from their altercation because they exercised it. They discharged that. Did you drop an earring? Yeah. And what I had realized is I had been, just to get the veterans to this place, had been an hour and a half of traffic, and I was churning from this traffic drive. And I was furious at some of these other incompetent drivers. Ugh, I was so angry. Because I didn't get a discharge. I didn't get a chance to sort out our conflict. Because in our sick society, because when we go to conflict, we go full nuclear, right? And so I didn't have any way to act, so I just shoved it down like I always do. And a little interesting piece about traffic. It takes our systems an roughly equal amount of time to just filter out the toxins that are formed as the time we spent in traffic. So if you're driving to work every day for 45 minutes, stewing in all of that madness, it takes about 45 minutes before you are back to equilibrium at a hormonal level. Doesn't matter how many books on tape you read or how much prayer and mindfulness, you still are pissed off for about 45 minutes. So it's really important that we do find ways to exercise that in an easier way. So when you look at pack hunters, they don't fight each other. Healthy conflict, that creates accountability of behavior. What Steve just outlined exactly lays over sports psychology and corporate American team building. So that was my epiphany about, so I'm gonna give my standard workshop thing with all my curriculum, and then at the end of that I'm gonna bring the wolves in and just see what happens. So that's what I've been doing for the last year and a half, and it has been profound, the amount of changes. What I was sharing about I got to work with Apple last week, and the head of their branding division, when we went around about, hey, what was worth remembering from the day? And he said, we need to fight, but not bite.
Uh,
And I was like, okay, yeah, it was all worth it. And he wasn't telling that to me. He was pointing at his workers. He's saying, we need to fight. I need all of you to start taking risks. I need you to start giving each other feedback, holding each other accountable. Just don't bite each other. So it's a really cool analogy. It's really powerful in terms of how can we now rewrite the fairy tale of what do our careers look like and our relationships and our families and really society. That's the big one. Okay? And so that's kind of some of the stuff I want to share with you guys in this next little chunk of time. Any questions so far? I was all over the place, but
I do have one question.
Yes,
How
sir.
much, and this is dear to my heart, is I'm afraid that people don't go outside anymore.
yeah.
And especially when you're working with tech companies that are interested in AR and VR, don't you feel like a big part of this problem is a sickness of nature deficit disorder?
I totally agree. I think it's super important. And Dr. Michael Salonius, who's he's my smart guy in my tribe. He's my wizard. Whenever I want an answer, he goes, if I could teach people 3 things, it would be meditation, sobriety, and then go barefoot. I'm like, really? You got 3 things you're going to give me barefoot, dude? No, come on. He trotted out all his, biology. How many nerve endings do you have in your foot compared to... So, yes, I think you're right. So, and I try to get people outside. I do ropes courses and just get people in a horse corral. And generally the wolves are outside also. So. Any other questions or comments or other good stuff? Okay.
I can give you a quick example.
Yes, my lady.
What do you think the difference is between having horses or wolves? Who has the larger impact and why?
Huge. The difference here is that wolves are predators and horses are prey. What are we?
Predators.
You have eyes in the front, and obviously we're omnivores, but when they morphologically bucket us, we're generally more we eat more things than things eat us. And so we have these stereoscopic forward-facing eyes. We are predators. Predators respond to energetic. One of the ranchers was saying they just go to the food. Basically, that's what humans do. So if you want to get a human to do something, you have to incentivize them. Working with horses, it's just the opposite. Instead of moving towards energy, they move away from energy. And so one of the big values of working with horses, as you know, because I know you work with horses, is you're learning a new language. And horses have almost a preternatural ability to pick up energy and most of my horse people say they're 2,000-pound bullshit sensors. So it doesn't matter how good you think your game is that gets you through in this environment. Oh, I'm this guy, I wear a vest and boots, I'm hard. Horses were just like, no, dude, I'm gonna call you right on that. And so, there's a really good way of being safe. You have to be non-threatening, but still hold your ground. That relationship building with a horse is very different than with a wolf, because you have to, when you do that, you do the join-up activity. Yeah, so you're basically running trying to understand what the dynamics of a horse herd are by pushing that lone horse out, and a lone horse is also a dead horse, except they will force the horse out of the herd, at which point that's a death sentence to their amygdala, and so they will quickly pivot. It's a shame function. Doing a join up with a horse is basically applying a shame dynamic and making them come back in and go, hey, I'm sorry, accept me. So it sounds manipulative, but we're learning the language, and we should have learned this language a long time ago about how we're supposed to function. And it's been buried and it's been lost because it's really grandfather or grandmother wisdom about how are we supposed to work together and how do I heal myself at an energetic or spiritual level, and it has been lost. So,
I have a question. I read a book a couple of years ago called Positive Intelligence.
cool.
By guys from Stanford, and he was a business guy, and I just wondering if you've been exposed. He writes a lot about are inner judges. And it's really interesting, as saboteurs to having healthy relationships with people. Like the first one, the biggest one is the judge. Your inner judge that's always constantly judging other people, judging yourself, and he encourages one to sort of name your judge and be able to know when it's getting activated, and then know how to manage it. And then there's like 7 other accomplice saboteurs he writes about, but it really made me just think about what you said about how can you fight in a healthy way but not fight?
Yeah.
And how do you manage these inner voices we have all the time? But I don't.
No, we're gonna touch a little bit on this. What I want to give you guys experientially is the keys to the castle about understanding some archetype work. And so this is Carl Jung. This guy may have been drawing stuff. He kind of is this titan of psychoanalysis and subconscious work.
Sure.
So Carl Jung is psychoanalysis master. He actually started that whole field of study. And he came up with the fact that there's primarily 4 different modalities or roles that we require in our tribes. And so that happens to fairly closely correspond with what's going on in the wolf families outside. So you might get a little bit of insight in that. I think that sounds like a really interesting field of study in it. Okay, I'm going to write a couple things on this. There will not be a test, except for life. And the reason why I want to do it graphically is that the thing that differentiates us from our wolf friends is that we have a prefrontal cortex, which is this thing in our front of our brains, and allows us to be aware, which the fancy word for that is metacognate. Wolves are much more limbic system, which means that they are always right here. They can project a little bit in the future, and they're going to remember a little bit in the past, but they're not able to, and here's another big fancy term from paleoanthropology, we have collective intentionality. And this means that we get to think about abstract things and then intentionally choose how to make that happen. It only happens in our prefrontal cortex, and it has to be utilized symbolically. It's the only way that we can talk about this weird world is to use symbols. So language is symbolic. Writing is symbols. To talk about time, this is not time. This is a little machine I wear in my watch, makes me look cool. And it moves dials. So this is a symbol of this strange concept of time. This is a symbol of tribal development. Okay? And this is going to be a symbol of not only the inner workings of our archetypes, but our archetypes within the group. Here we go. Anthropologists love pyramids. You guys remember Maslow? What's at the top of Maslow?
Self-actualization.
Yes, which means I'm completely optimized with my spirituality and my physicality and my purpose. So I'm all for wolves. What is this? What's the end game for a wolf? Survival. Right? Ultimately, that's what that land. Human beings we're pretty grandiose. So instead of survival, we need self-actualization. But survival is a good one to even start at. Maslow, what's the bottom? Yeah, it means that the very basis of the thing. Which means if I'm going to get eaten by a mountain lion, do I care about self-actualization? No. I don't want to get my ass eaten, so I'm going to handle this first. Always this happens, okay? So on the bottom of building a tribe is this commonality conversation. It's the reason why they don't fight, okay? And so common is the big theme we're here. And we're going to call this common vision, and then culturally, values. Values. So when you're building your conversation about a family unit, relationships, or a sports team if you're a coach, we need to find out, so what are we really working on? Are we trying to be happy and have everybody get playing time? Are we trying to win the title? What is it that we're really working on? And then if we can all agree to that, Now we get to move on. If we cannot agree to this, and we sort of make assumptions that, oh yeah, this is what we're all about, then we've gone willy-nilly into stuff, and things will not happen past that. So here's the next level. This is wolves don't bite, right? And we're going to call this healthy conflict. I'm sorry, I skipped one. Trust and safety. This is the wolves don't bite. All right? The difference between that healthy tribal function that we have in our societal function is that society has what's called the golden rule, and that is treat others like I want to be treated, right? I'm going to treat you all like I want to be treated. And that means you're all like me. Right? If I'm going to treat you all like I want to be treated, then you're all like me, and we'll get along fine. But is that true? It's not true. So tribes operate with the platinum rule, which is to treat others like, instead of you want to be treated, like they want to be treated. And that makes a lot of sense, right? It means that, oh, everybody has different needs and requirements, and different people have different definitions of what biting is. It's like, hey, I was just teasing. I wasn't really biting you. Oh, well, that felt like a bite to me. So we need to figure out that there's a lot of different people, primarily four is what Carl Jung would say, right? So the reason why we have a lot of our dysfunctional society is that human beings can only keep about 120 people in their Rolodex of relationship. Most people, it's much less. And so when tribes get bigger than about 100 people, then they split apart into 2 tribes, and then 4, and then you have a nation. And then pretty soon, you've got such a big group of people that you have to create some artificial systems to hold it all together. So Hammurabi is going to come up with laws, and we're going to come up with religions. And if you're in a company, you need an employee handbook to manage people. All of a sudden, you're in that weird world where, man, I don't have a purpose, I'm lost, I have no meaning. And the anthropology, again, purpose of cultures is to provide meaning. That's why they exist. So, trust and safety, if we want to be able to get this and to get past it into our healthy conflict, we're going to get to that, then we need to create some relationships with people. And this is a really, really challenging, squirrely thing to do, is creating relationships with other humans. We're profoundly complex organisms. And we've got this brand new brain that we're just trying to figure out if it works or not, evolutionarily. Hasn't been around very long. Every once in a while it throws a rod and we become schizophrenic. Okay? So we do not have a big, long, time-tested, bulletproof brain like the wolves do. The wolf system is perfect. How long have they been around?
Modern form about 100,000 years ago, at least, probably about 250.
But I mean, but wolves have been running the planet for gotta be millions.
Yeah.
I mean,
Different wolves.
it's a different wolf. It's like the dire wolf or something cool like that.
It's a long time still.
It's a long time. Evolution has done a really good job with that particular animal. And they would still be probably just dominating every continent except we came along. And there's a reason, from an anthropology perspective, that we have exterminated them on every continent. And my understanding is it's the only animal that we've actively gone after to exterminate. And there's a reason why there's so much mythology about that. I think that there's been, from what I heard, like 2 reported wolf deaths in the history of the United States. Is that correct?
Yeah.
There's even more detail than that, actually. One of them is highly questionable.
Okay, let's say 1.
Yeah.
We can say none.
I can't think
So the reality is that wolves simply don't kill people. And the ones that I heard about were like some sort of crazy guy who committed suicide by wolf or something like that. So the reality is, this demonized animal that we have exterminated hasn't killed anybody. It hasn't killed any humans. And yet it's the subject of all these just epically, gruesome stories and tales. It's really, it's not the fact that they are dangerous, it's that they are threatening. They're threatening because they're powerful. They're threatening because they're like us. And the things that we are afraid of and hate are the things that are the closest to us. So there's some anthropology in there about what our feelings are about wolves. It's a real love-hate kind of thing. We see a lot of the echoes of ourselves in that system. So I'm going to give you Carl Jung's cheat sheet or master key about how to build relationships with those 4 different archetypes. These archetypes are as much of psychology as my watch is time. Okay? So there's a lot of times that people will, if you've been in corporate America and you've done Myers-Briggs, and they've given you 3 letters and a number and or a color, or and you walk out with this sheet, you're like, oh, I'm a light blue HR? It's like, what is that? I don't want, but that's not me. So this is not you. But it gives us some symbols to talk about us. And for most people, when you hear it from a mythological perspective, which is what I'm going to propose to you, you're going to go, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So I'm going to use a myth to unpack this for you guys. And the reason why we're going to use mythology is, this is another little tidbit about human beings, that we are not born with instincts. We're born with drives. Wolves have a lot of instincts, and the definition of instinct is a complex set of drives. Human beings are tremendously good models of behavior. In fact, when we come out, we're almost a blank slate. We know how to suckle. We're trying to avoid not falling off of things, and we'll move away from loud noises. That's it. That's the basis of what we're born with. Now, what's really wonderful about coming out as a blank slate is that you get to provide the operating system that gives you the best chance of completely dominating your environment. And then the next generation, if we move into a different ecosystem, hey, we learn how to do stuff. Here's how you make this fish hook. Here's how to utilize this stone. Here's how to build this thing. And that cultural ratchet just goes click, 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 click. So Darwin says that evolution is the survival of the most adaptable. And we are it. That is our primary God-given heritage, our legacy, is that we can become anything. It will be what saves us. This will save us. In one generation, we could turn this whole thing around. And I understand it's bleak many times. It's hard to look at the environment where it is. It's hard to look at what we're doing in the world. But we're one generation away from completely changing the story. And you might have heard that nice meme of, if we can teach the kids to meditate, then we're done with war.
Go.
You know? So, true. We can't give up hope, because all we have to do is go, you know what? I read something, or I heard something, or my friend told me this thing. Upgrade the operating system. Start meditating. Get sober, pray, give back, be involved, get outside. Upgrade your operating system, and then we got a shot at doing something radically different. Okay. All right. Yay. Thanks for letting me back. Your 5-minute speaker. Okay. What I have made right here on this, and now we're going to get up and you have to move a little bit, because I'm going to have you choose your own quadrant. This is going to be Carl Jung's little quadrants here. I'm going to ask you to answer the following 2 questions with as much authenticity and honesty as you're able in this room of strangers. Hey, say hi to your neighbors real quick.
Hi.
Hello.
Shake a hand. Shake a hand. Hello. Philip.
To the south.
There you go.
Get your mask off.
Hey, how many people got a right-handed handshake? Everybody did.
Again?
We got a right-handed shake, most of us, because
I was lazy.
your right hand is your weapon hand, and this is in every culture. And so in every culture, there is some sort of a right-handed symbol that says, no weapons. I have no weapon, please look. In fact, I want to make sure you have none too, right? And it started way up here at the sleeve. Oh, okay, we're good, all right? We have, and you've seen the Native American movie where the chief raises his hand. How? It's an empty palm. Throw sand in the air. The hand that holds sand has no weapon. Okay?
That's the male side. The right side's the male side.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, okay, you can own that one.
Yep.
There's the things that I don't understand, I don't claim. Like
Okay.
handwriting analysis and stuff, I don't claim that one. I think it's really cool. Oh, I have a good one though. If you look at your signature and the first letter of your first name is bigger than the first letter of your second name, it means that you have a sense of being self-made. And you can just sign it if you want, you can see that. If the first letter of your second name is as big or bigger than your first name, it means that you have more of your importance placed on your heritage. And then my joke is, I have a big P, and thanks for nothing, Dad. If there wasn't a kid in the room, I would have changed that statement. So, anyway, I don't know if that's true. The masculine or feminine side, I think that's a slippery thing because there's a lot of what you would call sensitive men who aren't feminine at all. They're actually super masculine.
Well, that's because we all have both within us, and what we're looking for is the healthy balance.
I'm totally down with that.
Yeah.
Totally down with that. The salute. You know where that comes from? Why we salute? With our right hand. Anybody? It is the raising of the medieval visor to show your eyes. What you're saying to your opponent is, all right, I'm vulnerable, now don't stab me. And I won't stab you also. It's a sign of respect. That's why we salute officers. Okay? So there's a huge amount of stuff. And you know why we clink our glasses together? We used to poison each other so much in the courts that you would clink your goblets together and slosh wine back and forth, so you knew that the host was drinking some of what you were drinking. And you watched them. That's why it's Ike's like, okay. What do all those things have in common? Self-protection. This is all self-protection stuff. So, relevant. Anyway, you guys know each other now a little better. So please answer these two questions as authentically as you can. There is no right or wrong. There's no best or worst. Every tribe needs the king, the warrior, the magician, and the lover. We need all of them. Wherever you end up is awesome. Okay? And by the way, I just told you the name of the book that has this information in it if you want to read it. My man George's got a beautiful new tattoo of that. All right. So if you like it, and you don't have to play. If you just want to watch, that's cool too, right? I'm going to ask you guys now to, if you would like, choose which side of this blue rope you would like to be on, okay? And let's have on this side, where you're already sitting, are people who have a tendency to ask more questions. And then on this side would be a tendency to make more statements, okay? Come on, all you statement makers, get over here.
Statement makers? I'm in.
This is slightly more
That's how I get my questions
a
answered.
little more assertive. Yes. Get over here, John. You, sir, get over here. You can. This is just you can, if you want to move the chair right in the middle, move the chair in the middle. Okay.
Even though I don't
We started this. Okay, and guys, when I start telling you the story and you want to move, please move. Okay. Now remember where you are in terms of the blue rope, and now you're going to make a choice of the orange rope. Okay? People who are on this side, on a trip, they're focused on the destination. These are people who need to get there. They want to get things done. Okay? On this side of the orange rope are people who are on a trip, are focused on the journey. It's like, man, I'm on a journey. And these people are like, man, I need to get to that place, and then I can start my trip.
Yeah, I'm in the right spot right here.
So, oh, yeah, you're, good job. You're in the right spot. We gotta get there. Good job. You can't be right in the middle. You have to choose something.
I'm a huge one.
Oh, I can't choose.
Why aren't there enough?
Well, you can't
I know I should enjoy on that side of it, and I know I should enjoy the journey, but I know everyone else.
I love that.
People get pissed at me, people ever get places. I stop.
Again, where you're sitting is just where you chose to sit. This doesn't mean that you walk out of here with a label, or that your destiny has somehow been directed, or your fate, or you had some, that guy, he wore a vest. He must have known what he was talking about.
Really?
So,
Where do the people who don't have that belief go?
yeah, so feel free to, we will refund all your misery at the door. The way that human beings pass information from generation to generation is through mythology. It's why it exists in every culture. In fact, we keep telling the same story over and over again in every culture. And Joseph Campbell calls that the monomyth, or the hero's journey. Yes, Chris. Hero's journey, huge. So there seems to be some really ancient stuff in that, that piece of information, and Carl Jung relates it to the fact that we all have the same hardware. We've got temporal lobes, we've got a prefrontal cortex, we've got this part of our brain that tends to synthesize information in a similar way. And so when we look at the happenings of our days, or Wolf Week, or maybe a career, we tend to see it in the same kind of thing, and that's called the hero's journey. We also tend to view things through these 4 different archetypes. Okay? An example of your archetypes would be if everybody crosses your arms, don't be afraid. This is the way you always cross your arm. You've been doing it since you're about 4 years old. If you x-rayed your arm bones, they're slightly changed to fit. And if you would like to explore that, switch your arms. And if you want to wonder why it's so damn hard to change your life, or your habits, or your eating behavior, or anything else, there it is. You have a locked-in behavioral system. And this is very normal, it's natural. The reason why we always go back to the same way is that it's efficient. No animal on the planet is intentionally doing stuff that's inefficient. So if this ends up working for you, then this is what you're always going to end up doing. All right? However, you have the ability to change. And that means if you can practice this new behavior, and behavioralists are calling it about 28 days formally to create a new habit. If you can do that for 28 days, then all of a sudden, when you cross your arms, then you go like, oh, I can change. Where you're sitting, in at least mythological terms, is simply your default setting. Now, this may not even be your primary psychology. You may have just simply been forced into this from your career, or your family, or wherever you spend the most time doing. This happens to be where you're sitting right now. Doesn't mean you can't shift and move and flex, okay? So the story that we're going to use to unpack this, we're going to use Camelot. Because I think everybody knows the story, right? Anybody not know Camelot? Do you know Camelot? Oh, good. It's going to be a good one. It's a good story. Do not think that Camelot is that new movie coming out next month, which looks really good. It looks excellent. But, who's the main story of Camelot? Arthur. Okay. Arthur he sits high assertive, and he sits high connection. And when I said human beings have no instincts, I argued that point, by the way, because I see a lot of you going, I don't. We have a lot of drives, and we have 2 primary psychological drives. One of them is the need for connection. And I could spend an hour talking about why we're all addicted to our phones. We actually have what's becoming an actual mental disorder with our phones. We have them on all the time. We check them all the time. Anybody ever had their phone vibrate in their pocket and you checked it and it hadn't rang? Yes, that's the exact same mental function as amputees feel when they still feel their limb. The phantom ring, the phantom pain. So it's your brain saying, dude, I need that little dopamine hit of a Facebook like. Give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. And it makes your phone vibrate. Makes you check it. And it's some incredibly high number per day of times we check our phones. It's this. I know that if I'm alone, I'm going to die. The lone wolf dies. I know every time that somebody is interacting with me socially, I get this sense of well-being and validation, and it's like, oh, I feel somewhat whole again. So connection is one of the big ones we all have. The second one we have is the need to struggle. Okay? And struggle is the need to express ourselves and to change the world and to explore. I mean, I want to know what's in those cool hills up there. And I've never been to Sedona. There's a lot of things I want to do. So that's struggle. Like, I don't want to just sit in my room. I want to go see what those things are. All right? So we have these two drives, and if you form a nice little box around these are the quadrants you're sitting in. This is mythology, the characters that pop up here. Every tribe needs all four. A family that doesn't have all four of these is in need of somebody to change. And a lot of times that's why we're forced to change. So we're going to put the, back to King Arthur. This is King Arthur. You guys are King Arthur. Okay? So,
We're King Arthur.
you got, or Queen Arthur.
This Arthur.
Yes, you are. So this quadrant of people, and you guys high five each other. Say hello. My people. In fact,
My
everybody
people.
high five your quadrant. My people. Yes.
Now, I would have thought I was more Merlin myself.
Well, hold on.
If people are within your quadrant, they're the people with the most similar behavior to you in terms of your psychological profile. Okay? If you look at the adjacent quadrants, you will go, ooh, super connected people, like them, right? Like us. Not nearly as fierce as we are, though. So then you look down there, you go, ooh, fierce people. That's like us, but not quite as nice and fun as we are. And look diagonal, and you go, what the hell is going on down there? So your diagonal is the one that generally is the place that completes you. It has all that juicy stuff that makes it work. Okay? So on an internal level, a lot of times we have a tremendous amount of growth and movement on our diagonal. Okay? And similarly, when you're in long-term relationships, whether that be platonic, professional, or romantic, you end up marrying your opposite, or partnering with your opposite, because it completes you, right? So these are our sovereigns, our kings and queens, our chiefs, our alphas in many ways. They are innovators. They're change agents. They want to change the world. They're creative. They like to play at 20,000 feet, and they want to see what's that big thing that I can change and transform into that. They will make their decisions a lot of the time in testimonials. Okay? They reject isolation. They want to be around people. They want a lot of people to show up at that campfire talk, like that thing. You know, it's like the more the better, and let's get this. Let's create a fire and change some things. They reject repetition, boredom, tedious, detail-oriented deep dives into things. They would choose not to do that. This quadrant?
This quadrant.
I gotta get over there.
Get over there. And you're the one that said, hell yeah. And you know what? You look good with a crown.
Can you label?
Yep.
I'm
King.
I'm a kind of spatial
I get it.
learner.
I'm only using king because the book is called King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. So queens, own your queenliness. So, sovereign, if that makes you happy. But I want you to remember the book. So our sovereigns are going to reject a lot of things that they view as being tedious or boring, and that leads them to their Achilles heel sometimes, that they will launch out before they're completely ready to do something. They won't get the procedural information ready. They're going to just kind of like, hey, wing it. Let's find out if that's going to work, and let's play it by ear. And so a lot of the time, if they call that meeting, which feels really good and fun, and hey, we're just going to kick things around, some other people are going, hey, we need some action items, an agenda. Do we even have an end time to this meeting? What are we doing at this meeting? Okay,
Just taking notes.
it makes us a little unsettled if we're just winging it all the time. Okay, so in the story of King Arthur's got a vision. He wants to change the world. Round table, no edges, caste system.
equality, blah, blah, blah. However, he has no power until he receives Excalibur. So Excalibur is given to King Arthur via Merlin, right? So Merlin puts the sword in the stone, for he who removes the sword from the stone shall be king of all England. So you guys are Merlin. So this is one of the big primary polls about tribal development. Our Merlins are their focus is staying in their cave and building magic swords. Is what they do. They're willing to go deep dive into research, process-based architecture, looking at the numbers, the historical precedent. They want to stay in there and hammer that thing until it's flawless, right? It's magical. It's just not perfect. It's not right yet. It's not right yet. One more edit. And this leads us to sort of our magician Achilles' heel, and that it's never perfect. And if we're waiting for the book to be perfect or the sword to be flawless, we'll just end up with a cave or a tower filled with parts and pieces until we've got it all together. But the world needs the magic swords. Stop waiting. Engage. And this is kind of some of our magician challenges, is that we're not going to go at you personally like some of the kings and queens will. They're going to get a little catty. We're just going to go, click. No swords for you.
You're in the right spot.
I'm the
Take all my toys and go
I'm
home.
the smartest one in the room, and I like that. And at some point, you'll ask me for my opinion, and then I might give it to you. So, for us to be able to work with each other, we need to know that things aren't going to be perfect, and things are not always going to be on a flow chart, and things aren't always going to. There's going to be some things that are messy. Ooh, I don't want messy. And for them, they have to know, hey, I need to slow down. I need to do some details, get the information out so that others can engage with it. And this is a really good balance. In many ways, a lot of our more extroverted people enjoy and they kind of power up around people. For a lot of us who are more introverted, we can be around people, but then at the end of the day, we go back to our room and we're like, oh, God, thank you. So, this is a pole that is really, really powerful, okay? So kings, and down here, these are our magicians. For those of you guys who wanted a little bit of business stuff, just because you're here from the hotel or anything, this is innovation. If you are not innovative, you're already falling behind in business. The pace of change right now is exponential, never been seen before. So if we don't have cultures that are constantly being innovative, even as it relates to rolling out engagements with wolves, for example. All the social media and all the crowdfunding and all that stuff that's happening right now. If you're not part of that, you are an anachronism. You're just done. So this is innovation, vital. This is process or efficiency, which means if you don't really have a set game plan, if you haven't thought about your business model or what, so how are you gonna get connected to those power players in Washington? How do you do that information? So a lot of times, what the magic sword looks like is a grant, an app. It's a book. These are magic swords in our world, right? So this is efficiency. So innovation and efficiency tend to be a pole to each other. Okay. Who sits at King Arthur's round table?
Let's.
Warrior.
Yes. Here they are. Sitting all together in a nice line, ready for action. And they're just tapping their toes, waiting for something to happen. When he stops talking, then we can start finally doing things. So the meeting that these people call, that kind of drives these people crazy, so it's so disorganized. These people hate even going to it all. They're like, I wish this meeting would be over so I could actually start doing important things. So knights or warriors, these are the people that love getting things done. So King Arthur says, you know what? The only way to heal this kingdom is that we need the cup of Christ. Get me that grail. They're going to go out and get the grail. They're going to armor up. They're going to thunder off. And they're going to ride over anything or anyone in their way.
Yeah.
And when they find the grail, they're going to go, that's a nice grail.
what's the next grail?
Yeah.
And eventually, 50 years later, they go, how did I get to be 50 years old? Why, what happened? What happened? I feel like I thought I was like 30. All of a sudden I'm 50. You know, it's like I've got a whole career of grails sitting behind me, and people that I run over, and I've outrun my supply lines, and I haven't taken my armor off for a long time. Oh. So these are our warriors, and we need them. We need them to defend the boundaries. We need them to be able to do all the stuff that happens to make things work. In business, this is competition. A lot of times us warriors, we hate to lose more than we like to win. Okay? We hate the fact that we are embarrassed, or and we cannot stand a lack of honor. It stinks. It stinks to us. Anybody who is not that focused, that duty-driven, that ferocious, it's either, hey, give me a grail to chase, help me get my grail I'm chasing, or get the hell out of my way. And what happens is, a lot of times people just can't keep up with you, or me. And so we know what happens when we outrun our supply lines, and we end up being the lone wolf, is that lone wolf dies. So again, we are heart-based. It is relationship-based. It is inherently empathetic and compassionate and connected. These are the people that are the glue of their tribe. Without them, they fall apart. In the wolf pack, I would guess these are the nannies, or the caretakers, or it's the thing that is that social glue that keeps it together. Right? In business, you cannot incentivize or pay people enough money to stay in a job that sucks. And I've seen it. People are like, hey, if we just have beanbags instead of chairs, if we have Taco Tuesday, will you stay? They're like, no, this is really a toxic place to work. I'm out. As soon as something better shows up. So in business, the lovers hold down retention, which means we're keeping our people. We're keeping the tribe together, or the sports team together, or your friendships together. So it's incredibly important in business that with everybody else hunting for the good people, that you keep the good people within your tribe. Your good hunters, the good, the innovators. We need to keep our people. And you guys are awesome at that. You take care of other people to the extent that you stop taking care of yourselves. Right? Service, service, service. And a lot of time that leaves us without having done any self-care and constantly taking care of others. It also means that I don't want to offend other people, and so I will walk around conflict and just kind of, I'll handle that one later. So if we are not able to set healthy boundaries for ourselves and practice some self-care while we're taking care of the rest of the tribe, then we end up compromising ourselves, and then we're not able to take care of anybody else, and the whole tribe goes down. So the lovers need to learn how to put on their war hat and go, you know what, that doesn't work for me. I don't accept that language. I don't accept that schedule. Or I didn't give you permission to yell at me. So this is decisiveness, vital, right? And this is compassion, vital. And the balance between peace and power is grace. So that little balance, that little sweet spot right there. Really, really important, vital thing. Okay, so the name of this book, and I know that I'm way over on time, I apologize.
No, you're okay.
King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. It's by Drs. Moore and Gillette out of the University of Chicago. And it is a master class of great information. The reason why I wanted to share a little of this with you is that I believe it's kind of a game changer lens to view people through. Your barista who gives you the kombucha we got yesterday, the moment we walked in, I was like, oh, that's a king. And that meant that I could kind of play with him, I could tease him a little bit, because he's going to be like, ooh, talk about me some more. I like this. But if he was, somebody who was like, hello, and here's this and this and this, and then, like very wizard, I'd be like, okay, if I bust his balls, he's going to take it as like, that's inappropriate. Or, I don't know you yet. You've not been allowed into my wizard cave. So, what it does is it lets us shift our own behavior, and that's called versatility.
Versatility is the platinum rule. If you are not able to be versatile and enact that platinum rule, and that gets you your trust and safety. And this is where I'm going to put a bow on it, guys. And you're welcome to pick my brain or email me about any of this information. And if I'm keeping from your lunch, I apologize. So this is the platinum rule. If you're able to honor the different behavioral styles in your tribe, then you get to access healthy conflict. Okay? That means you get to bite but not fight.
You mean fight but not bite?
That's what I mean.
Talking.
Okay.
If you bite but
Biting
don't
not
fight,
fighting
then
would
you
be-
run pretty fast.
That would be like a psychopath, I think. So healthy conflict means I get to give my friends, family, and coworkers honest feedback. Like, hey, we're on the same team working on this, and I know that you're a warrior, and you don't want to hear about this next month. You want to hear about it right now. So I'm just going to pull the Band-Aid off and say, you said you're going to have it to me by Monday, and you didn't. And that means you really left me hanging out to dry. So that was what just happened. And most of the warriors, if you do the right sequence of loading, they'll be like, hey, thanks for that. You know, and then we can move on. And this is called accountability. Okay? Accountability is the highest kind of echelon of human interaction and behavior. We don't get to see it very often in an honest sense unless you have been part of a military unit, unless you have been on a championship sports team or high-performing sports team, or if you've been part of a rare subsection of our culture like a fire department or some other high-performance little team, because those are tribal, and this is tribal, and this is self-actualized, full-fledged performance. Okay? And the reason why I think this is so valuable is that we don't have to go back to wearing loincloths to do this. We don't have to give up our iPhones to do this. All we have to do is start creating relationships and systems and intentional behaviors that tap into some of our ancient hardwiring of I need to be connected and I need to be able to express some struggle, and I need to do that appropriately with the individuals on my team and moving forward.
And so in
I will not be offended if you got to go eat lunch. So go if you want to go. Like, you're not walking out on me. I want to be like, ooh. Yeah.
so in this scheme with that language,